The antiseptic smell of the hospital hallway clung to my uniform like a second skin, sharp, clinical, suffocating. My sneakers squeaked against the polished linoleum as I hurried toward the staff locker room, my fingers trembling as they clutched the manila envelope against my chest. Inside, hidden between medical reports I was supposed to deliver to Dr. Reeves, was the ultrasound image that had turned my world into something unrecognizable. 12 weeks. The numbers on that grainy black and white photo felt like a countdown to my execution. I pushed through the double doors into the employee break room, desperate for a moment alone, but the universe had other plans. The room was empty except for the humming vending machine and the lingering scent of burnt coffee. I collapsed into one of the plastic chairs, my legs finally giving out after a 12-hour shift that had left me hollow and aching. My hand moved to my stomach, still flat, still concealing the secret that would destroy everything. I hadn't meant for any of this to happen. Working as a nurse at Mercy General was supposed to be simple, invisible work. I helped people, I survived, and I stayed far away from the kind of danger that had consumed my father before his death. But 3 months ago, during a charity gala where I'd been hired to work the private medical station for VIP guests, I'd met him, Dante Morelli. Even now, his name sent ice water through my veins. I hadn't known who he was that night. Not really. I'd only seen a man in a black suit that probably cost more than my annual salary, with dark eyes that seemed to strip away every defense I'd ever built. He'd approached the medical station with a cut on his hand, dismissing his hovering security with a subtle gesture that made grown men retreat like scolded children. "Just a scratch," he'd said, his voice like smoke and expensive whiskey. "But I'd prefer your discretion. I should have recognized the warning signs." The way other staff members averted their eyes when he passed, the sudden tension that filled every space he occupied, the deference, the fear barely masked as respect. But I'd been tired, and he'd been magnetic. One conversation had led to another. One night had led to everything unraveling. Now I carried the evidence of my catastrophic mistake, hidden beneath scrubs and silence. The break room door swung open, and I jumped, shoving the envelope back into my bag with guilty haste. It was just Maria, one of the older nurses, her kind face creased with concern. "Sweetie, you look like you've seen a ghost. You okay?" I forced a smile, the same mask I'd been wearing for weeks. "Just tired. Long shift." She nodded, understanding in her eyes, and moved toward the coffee maker. I took the opportunity to escape, grabbing my bag and heading toward the exit. I needed to get home, needed to think, needed to figure out how to disappear before Dante discovered what I'd been hiding. Because men like Dante Morelli didn't do relationships, they didn't do commitment, and they certainly didn't do unexpected pregnancies with hospital nurses they'd spent one reckless night with. They did control, they did possession, they did elimination of problems. And I refused to let my baby become a problem to be eliminated. The late November air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside, cold enough to sting but not quite cold enough for snow. I wrapped my thin jacket tighter around myself, mentally calculating how much money I had saved. Enough for a bus ticket, maybe. Enough to disappear into another city where his reach couldn't find me. I was so lost in my desperate planning that I didn't notice the black SUV idling at the curb until it was too late. The passenger window rolled down with an expensive whisper, and my heart stopped. Not Dante. Worse. Marco, his head of security. A man built like a concrete wall with eyes that missed nothing, regarded me with the same expression he might give an insect he was deciding whether to crush. "Miss Chen, Mr. Morelli requests your presence." It wasn't a request. It never was with men like them. I have to get home," I stammered, backing away. "I have an early shift tomorrow." It wasn't a question. Marco's voice carried no threat because it didn't need to. The fact of his presence was threat enough. My mind raced. Did he know? Had someone told him? The hospital had been busy today, full of Dante's business associates, after some kind of incident I deliberately avoided learning about. Had someone seen the ultrasound? Had someone reported back? I really can't. The rear door opened, and there he was. Dante Morelli emerged from the SUV like a shadow taking human form. all sharp edges and controlled power wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. His black hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. And those eyes. God, those eyes were the same ones that had undone me 3 months ago, dark, intense, and currently fixed on me with the focus of a predator who'd found his prey. Ilera. My name on his lips sounded like both a caress and a threat. We need to talk. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But Marco had moved to block my path to the parking lot, and another security guard I hadn't noticed had positioned himself near the hospital entrance. They'd box me in without ever appearing to move. About what? I kept my bag pressed against my side, hyper-aware of the envelope inside that contained evidence that would change everything. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something dangerous. About the fact that you've been avoiding my calls for 3 months. About the fact that you disappeared after that night without a word. He took a step closer, and I fought the urge to retreat. About the fact that you're trembling right now like I'm going to hurt you. I'm not. You are. Another step. The scent of his cologne reached me. Cedar and something darker. Something that reminded me of that night, when I'd made the worst mistake of my life, and I want to know why. My mouth went dry. The envelope in my bag felt like it was burning through the canvas, screaming its secret to anyone who could hear. I've been busy. Work is... Don't. The single word cut through my excuse like a blade. Don't lie to me, Ilara. I've had people lying to me my entire life. I can smell it like blood in the water. He was close enough now that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough that my traitorous body remembered exactly what those hands felt like on my skin. Tell me the truth. The truth would destroy me. The truth would trap me. The truth would put my baby in the hands of a man who solved problems with violence and owned people like property. There's nothing to tell, I whispered. That night was a mistake. We both know it. I'm not part of your world, Dante. I'm nobody. Something flashed across his face, anger, maybe, or something that looked almost like hurt before his expression hardened into marble. Get in the car. No. His jaw tightened. It wasn't a request, and I'm not one of your soldiers. Courage I didn't know I possessed flooded through me. You can't just summon me because you feel like it. I have a life. I have a secret. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more dangerous than shouting. Something you're hiding? Because I can see it, Ilara. It's written all over your face. My heart hammered against my ribs. He knew. Somehow. He knew. I don't know what you're... A phone rang. Marco's. And he answered immediately, his expression shifting to something grim. He murmured something to Dante in Italian. Too quick and quiet for me to catch. Dante's attention snapped away from me, his entire demeanor changing in an instant. The man who'd been focused on me with laser intensity became something else, something cold and calculating, and absolutely lethal. How many? He asked Marco, his voice devoid of emotion. 4. At the East Side warehouse. Dante's jaw clenched. Then he turned back to me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood freeze. Frustration, anger, and something that looked almost like regret. This isn't over, he said quietly. We will have this conversation, Ilara. Soon. He moved toward the SUV, Marco already holding the door open. But then he paused, turned back, and before I could process what was happening, he closed the distance between us and caught my chin gently in his hand, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. Whatever you're running from, he said, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Whatever you're afraid of, you should know that I protect what's mine. And whether you want to admit it or not, you've been mine since the moment you looked at me with those fearless eyes and told me to stop being a baby about a tiny cut. Then he was gone, sliding into the SUV that pulled away with the quiet efficiency of a shark moving through dark water. I stood there in the cold, shaking, my hand pressed against my stomach where our secret was growing. He'd said, "What's mine?" Like I was a possession, like I was something to be owned. I stumbled toward my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. I needed to leave. Tonight. I needed to pack everything I could carry and disappear before he decided to dig deeper, before he discovered the truth. But as I threw my bag onto the passenger seat, the envelope slipped out, and the ultrasound image fluttered onto the floorboard, face up, the date stamp glaring at me like an accusation. 12 weeks. 3 months. Exactly the time since that night, when I'd let a monster under my skin and created a life I had no idea how to protect. I grabbed the image with shaking hands, shoving it back into the envelope, and froze. Because there, in my rearview mirror, I saw it. Another black SUV, different from Dante's, but the same predatory energy. It was parked 3 rows back, its engine running, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see who was inside, but I could feel them watching me. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. Were they Dante's people? Or worse, were they his enemies? The kind of people who would use a nobody nurse as leverage against a man like Dante Morelli. I started my car with trembling hands, my mind screaming at me to drive, to run, to disappear. But as I pulled out of the parking lot, the SUV followed, and I realized with crushing, terrifying certainty that running might no longer be an option. That my secret, our secret, might have just run out of time. The SUV followed me for 6 blocks before disappearing into the labyrinth of evening traffic, but the damage was done. My hands hadn't stopped shaking since I'd pulled into my apartment building's underground garage, and I'd sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching the entrance, waiting to see if they'd followed me home. They hadn't appeared, but that meant nothing. My apartment felt different when I finally forced myself inside. Smaller, more exposed, like the walls were made of paper instead of plaster. I double-locked the door, engaged the chain, and shoved a chair under the handle for good measure. My nursing school roommate used to laugh at my paranoia about home security. She wasn't laughing anymore. She'd moved to Portland 2 years ago, far away from the city's shadows. Maybe she'd had the right idea. I dropped my bag on the kitchen counter and stared at the envelope that had caused all of this. The ultrasound mocked me with its innocent existence, just a grainy image of a tiny life that had no idea what kind of world it was being born into. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the image, my fingers tracing the small blur that was supposedly a head. "I'm so sorry." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart seized. I stared at the screen, watching it light up again and again, each buzz feeling like a countdown. On the 5th ring, I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hello?" Silence. Then breathing. Steady, controlled, deliberate. "I know you're scared." Dante's voice filled my small apartment like smoke, wrapping around me even through the phone. "But running will only make this worse." "I don't know what you're talking about. The SUV that followed you. It wasn't mine." His tone was matter of fact, but I could hear something underneath. Anger. Tightly leashed. "Which means someone else is watching you. Someone who thinks you matter to me." Ice flooded my veins. Why would anyone think that? Because I made the mistake of showing interest. Because I ask questions about you. Because in my world everything is a weapon. And you, he paused, and I heard him exhale slowly. "You just became leverage. I didn't ask for this." My voice cracked. "I didn't ask for any of this. No. You asked for one night, and then you disappeared." The anger was clearer now, sharp as broken glass. "Did you really think I wouldn't look for you? That I wouldn't want answers? We barely know each other, Dante. One night doesn't mean... It means everything." The intensity in his voice made my knees weak. "In my world, nothing is casual. Nothing is meaningless. You touched something in me that night, Alara. You looked at me like I was human instead of a monster, and then you vanished like I'd imagined the entire thing." I closed my eyes, pressing my palm against my stomach. "Maybe you should have let me stay vanished." Too late for that now. I heard movement on his end, footsteps, a door closing. "Marco is outside your building. He'll bring you somewhere safe." "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "I'm not going anywhere with your men. You don't have a choice. Whoever was watching you tonight will be back. And next time, they might not just watch." Terror and fury warred inside me. You can't just take over my life because you decided I matter. I'm not yours to protect. I'm not yours to control. I'm not yours." The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, You keep saying that. Like if you repeat it enough times, it'll become true. His voice dropped to something softer, more dangerous, but we both know you're lying. Before I could respond, he continued. Marco will wait exactly 15 minutes. If you don't come down, he'll come up. And I promise you, Alara, you want to cooperate. Because if I have to come collect you myself... He let the threat hang. Well, I'm not known for my patience. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my mind racing through options that didn't exist. I could refuse to leave, but then Dante's men would break down my door, and my neighbors would see, and questions would be asked that I couldn't answer. I could call the police, but what would I say? That a dangerous man was trying to protect me from other dangerous men? That I was pregnant with a Mafia boss's child? They'd laugh me out of the station, or worse. They'd get involved, and then Dante would know everything. 10 minutes had already passed. I grabbed my bag, shoved some clothes and toiletries into a duffel, and tucked the ultrasound envelope into the bottom of my purse where it couldn't accidentally fall out again. My hands moved on autopilot, trained by years of emergency room efficiency, even as my mind screamed that this was insane. But what choice did I have? I was trapped between predators, and the only one offering protection was the same man I'd been running from. Marco was waiting by a different SUV when I emerged from the building. This one even more intimidating than the last, with windows so dark they looked like they'd been painted with midnight. He nodded once, opening the rear door without a word. "Where are we going?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "Somewhere safe." His tone suggested the conversation was over. I climbed inside, and the door closed behind me with the finality of a prison cell locking. The drive took 40 minutes through parts of the city I'd never seen. Neighborhoods that got progressively cleaner, wealthier, more removed from the world I knew. We passed through a private gate that required a security code, then up a winding road lined with trees that blocked out the streetlights. When we finally stopped, I found myself staring at a house that could only be called an estate. 3 stories of modern architecture and old money, all glass and stone and intimidation. Security cameras dotted the perimeter. Lights glowed from windows that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. This was Dante's world, and I had just stepped into the center of it. Marco opened my door. "Mr. Morelli is inside. He's expecting you." My legs felt like water as I walked up the stone pathway to the massive front door. It opened before I could knock, revealing not Dante but an older woman in elegant casual clothes, expensive jeans and a cashmere sweater that spoke of wealth worn comfortably. "Miss Chen." Her smile was warm, but her eyes were assessing. "I'm Teresa. I manage the household. Mr. Morelli asked me to show you to your room." "My room?" The words came out strangled. "I'm not staying." "He insisted you'd be more comfortable with privacy." Teresa's expression softened slightly. "The guest wing is fully furnished. You'll have your own bathroom, sitting area. Anything you need, just ask." She led me through a foyer that looked like it belonged in a museum. Marble floors, artwork I was afraid to look at too closely, a staircase that curved up like something from a movie. We climbed to the 2nd floor, down a hallway lined with more art, until she opened a door to reveal a room 3 times the size of my apartment. "The closet has basic clothing if you need anything tonight. Bathroom is through that door. Mr. Morelli will join you for dinner in an hour." Teresa paused at the door. "He's not what people think, you know. He's complicated, but he doesn't hurt people who don't deserve it." Then she was gone, leaving me alone in luxury that felt like a cage. I dropped my bag on the bed, a bed that could fit 4 people comfortably, and moved to the window. The view overlooked manicured gardens, and beyond them, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Beautiful, remote, isolated. I pressed my hand against my stomach. "What have I done?" I whispered. A knock at the door made me jump. "Ilara," Dante's voice, muffled through the wood. "May I come in?" As if I could refuse. "Yes." The door opened, and he entered like he owned the space, which, technically, he did. But he'd changed since I'd seen him outside the hospital. The suit jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle, and marked with scars I hadn't noticed before. He looked almost human, almost normal. except for the gun holstered at his hip, casual as a watch. "Are you comfortable?" he asked, his eyes scanning the room as if checking for threats even here, in his own fortress. "Comfortable?" I laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "You had your men follow me, threaten me, and kidnap me to your mansion." "No, Dante. I'm not comfortable. Marco didn't threaten you. He protected you." Dante moved closer, and I forced myself to hold my ground. "There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing." His jaw tightened. "The people watching you tonight, they work for the Calabrese family. They're my competitors. And if they think you mean something to me, they'll use you. They'll hurt you to hurt me. Do you understand? Then tell them I don't mean anything." Desperation cracked my voice. "Tell them I was a mistake, a nobody, someone you've already forgotten. Make them stop watching me." "I can't." The words came out harsh. "Because it would be a lie." Silence stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. "Why?" I finally whispered. "Why do I matter? We had one night, one conversation, one mistake." Dante's expression shifted, something painful flickering across his features before the mask slammed back down. "You looked at me like I was worth saving. Like there was still something human left inside me." He took another step closer. "Do you have any idea how rare that is? How fucking precious?" I don't... My thoughts scattered as he invaded my space, his presence overwhelming. "You're romanticizing a simple conversation between strangers, am I?" His hand came up, not touching but hovering near my face. "Then why did you run? If I meant nothing, why disappear?" "Because I was afraid. Because men like you consume everything they touch. Because I'm carrying your child and I can't let you know. Because I knew this would happen," I said instead. "I knew you'd try to own me." "Own you?" He actually smiled, but it was bitter. "Alara, if I wanted to own you, you'd know it. What I want is to understand. What I want is the truth." His eyes dropped then, just for a second, to where my hand had unconsciously moved to my stomach. Protective. Instinctive. And I saw the moment something clicked in his mind. "You're scared," he said slowly, his gaze sharpening. "Not just of me, not just of the Calabrese. You're scared of something else. Something..." His eyes narrowed. "Something you're hiding." My heart stopped. "I don't know what." "Don't." The command was soft but absolute. "I told you, I can smell lies." I needed to deflect, to redirect, to do something before he pieced it together. "If you're so concerned about my safety," I said, forcing strength into my voice, "then let me go. Let me disappear somewhere far away where your enemies can't find me. Problem solved." "No." The word was final as death. "Why not?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell that cedar and smoke scent that haunted my dreams. "Because you're already in my blood, Alara. And I don't let go of what's mine. I'm not..." His finger pressed gently against my lips, silencing me. "We'll continue this discussion over dinner. You need to eat. You look exhausted." His hand dropped, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. "And tomorrow, you're going to tell me the truth. Whatever secret you're carrying, whatever you're afraid of, you're going to trust me with it. And if I refuse," something dangerous flickered in his expression, "then I'll find out another way. But I promise you, Alara, you'll prefer giving me the truth, willingly." He left then, closing the door with a soft click that sounded like a prison lock engaging. I collapsed onto the bed, my hands shaking, my mind racing. He was getting too close. He was already suspicious, and tomorrow I would have to decide. Keep running from the truth, or face the monster I'd created a life with. Either way, I was trapped. And the walls were closing in. Dinner was served in a dining room that could seat 20, but held only 2. Dante at the head of an absurdly long table, and me positioned close enough to talk, but far enough to feel the distance between our worlds. Teresa had outdone herself. The meal was elegant, carefully plated, the kind of food I'd only seen in magazines. Herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, wine that Dante drank while I stuck to water. He noticed, of course. He noticed everything. You're not drinking, he observed, his fork pausing midway to his mouth. I don't like wine. The lie came easily, practiced over the past few weeks whenever colleagues invited me out after shifts. His dark eyes studied me with that unnerving intensity. You drank champagne at the gala, 3 glasses. My stomach dropped. You were counting? I notice everything about you. He said it like it was obvious, like of course he'd catalogued my every movement that night. The way you laughed at the surgeon's terrible jokes, the way you kicked off your heels under the table when you thought no one was looking, the way you bit your lip when you were nervous. Heat crept up my neck. That's observant. That's obsession. He set down his fork, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of a man who owned everything in sight, including apparently me. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for 3 months, Alara, so yes, I remember how many glasses of champagne you had. I remember the exact shade of your dress. I remember how your hand felt in mine when I pulled you onto that balcony. I remembered too. God help me. I remembered every second of that night. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why me? You could have anyone. Women who belong in your world, who understand it, who wouldn't be terrified every second. Because those women see what I can give them. Money, power, protection, status. His gaze pinned me in place. You saw me. Just me, a man with a cut on his hand who needed help. You didn't know my name. You didn't care about my reputation. You treated me like I was human. You are human, I said quietly. That's debatable. Bitterness edged his words. Ask the people who've crossed me. Ask the families I've destroyed. Ask the men I've killed. I should have been horrified. I should have recoiled. Instead, I heard myself ask, did they deserve it? Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or something deeper. Yes. Simple. Honest. Every single one. We ate in silence after that, the weight of his confession hanging between us. I pushed food around my plate, my stomach too twisted with anxiety to properly eat, even though the baby probably needed the nutrition. The baby. Our secret. Growing bigger with each passing day, becoming harder to hide. You're not eating, Dante observed again. Are you feeling ill? Just tired. It's been a long day. He stood abruptly and I flinched, an involuntary reaction that made his jaw tighten. I'm not going to hurt you, Alara. His voice was softer than I expected. Whatever else you believe about me, believe that. People in your world get hurt all the time, I countered. That's what you do. That's who you are. People in my world make choices. He moved around the table with predatory grace, stopping behind my chair. I felt his presence like heat at my back. They choose to betray, to steal, to threaten what's mine. And yes, I hurt them for it, but you? You've done nothing to warrant my anger. Haven't I? I turned to look up at him. I ran from you. I avoided you. I scared me. The admission seemed to cost him. For the first time in 15 years, someone made me feel something other than rage or emptiness. And then she vanished. Yes, Alara, you hurt me, but not in a way that deserves punishment. In a way that deserves understanding. His hand came to rest on my shoulder, gentle, almost hesitant, like he was afraid I'd break. Tell me why you ran, he said quietly. Tell me what you're afraid of. This was the moment. I could feel it crystallizing around us, sharp as glass. I could tell him the truth. I could show him the ultrasound and watch his world, our world, explode into something unrecognizable. Or I could keep lying, keep running, even while trapped in his fortress. I'm afraid of this, I whispered. Of losing myself, of becoming another possession in your collection. You could never be a possession. His fingers traced my collarbone, a touch so light it barely existed. You're too bright, too stubborn, too essential. I stood, needing distance, needing air. You don't know me well enough to say that. Then let me know you. He didn't follow, giving me space even as his words chased me. Stay here. Let me protect you. Let me own me. I spun to face him. Control me? Decide what I can and can't do, where I can and can't go, keep you alive. His voice hardened. The Calabrese family doesn't make empty threats, Alara. If they think you're leverage, they'll take you. And what they'll do to you before they kill you." He stopped, his hands clenching into fists. "I won't let that happen." "Why?" I demanded. "Why do you care so much about someone you barely know?" "Because I'm selfish." The honesty in his tone was brutal. "Because I want you, and I take what I want. Because the thought of anyone else touching you makes me want to burn this entire city to the ground." The possessiveness should have terrified me. Instead, it ignited something dangerous low in my belly, the same thing that had drawn me to him that first night. "That's not love," I said. "That's obsession. I never claimed to be capable of love." He moved closer, a shark scenting blood. "Love is gentle, patient, kind. I'm none of those things, Alara. What I feel for you is darker, hungrier, but it's real, and it's not going away. You're insane. Probably." He was close enough to touch now, his presence overwhelming. "But you're here, in my home, under my protection, which means on some level, you trust me. Or at least you trust me more than you trust whatever's out there." He was right, and I hated it. "I want to go to bed," I said, deflecting. "I'm exhausted." Disappointment flickered across his face, but he nodded. "Of course. Teresa prepared everything you need. If you require anything during the night." "I'll be fine." I moved toward the door, desperate to escape before he saw through my defenses entirely. But his voice stopped me. "Alara." I paused, not turning around. "Whatever you're hiding, I will find out. You know that, don't you?" My hand moved instinctively to my stomach, protective and damning. "There's nothing to find," I lied. But as I climbed the stairs back to the guest room, I felt his gaze following me, hunting, questioning, coming closer to the truth with every passing second. The nightmare woke me at 2 a.m., as it had every night for the past week. I jolted upright, gasping, my heart hammering against my ribs. In the dream, Dante had found out about the baby, and instead of the anger I expected, I'd seen something worse. Betrayal. Pain. The kind of hurt that turned men into monsters. Then he'd taken the baby from my arms, and I'd woken up screaming. Except I hadn't screamed. I'd learned to strangle the sound before it escaped. Years of practice from a childhood, where making noise brought unwanted attention. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to calm my racing pulse. The room was too big, too quiet, too foreign. I missed my tiny apartment with its familiar creaks and traffic sounds. I missed feeling like I had control over my own life. A soft knock made me freeze. "Alara." Dante's voice, concerned. "Are you all right?" I heard movement. Of course he had. The man probably had surveillance on every inch of this property. "I'm fine," I called out, hating how shaky my voice sounded. "Just couldn't sleep." Silence. Then, "May I come in?" "It's your house." The door opened, and Dante appeared wearing pajama pants and nothing else, his chest bare and marked with more scars than I'd imagined. A roadmap of violence survived. In his hand was a glass of water. "You looked pale at dinner," he said, offering the glass. "I thought you might be dehydrated." I took it, our fingers brushing, electricity sparking at the contact. "You don't have to take care of me," I said quietly. "Yes, I do." He sat on the edge of the bed, not close enough to crowd me, but close enough to talk. "It's all I've been able to think about for 3 months. Taking care of you. Making sure you're safe. Making sure you're happy." "Why?" The question was becoming my mantra. "Because you gave me something I didn't know I needed." His dark eyes found mine in the moonlight streaming through the window. Hope. The idea that maybe I wasn't completely hollow inside. That maybe I could be something other than what my father made me. "Your father?" His jaw tightened. "He ran this organization before me. Built it on blood and fear. Taught me that love was weakness. That caring about anyone was giving them a weapon to use against you." He paused. "He was murdered when I was 23. Betrayed by someone he trusted. Someone he loved. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was a monster." Dante's voice was flat, But he was right about one thing. Caring about people makes you vulnerable, makes you weak. And yet, he looked at me, and I saw something raw in his expression. I can't seem to stop caring about you. The confession hung between us, intimate and terrifying. You barely know me, I whispered. I know you're brave. I know you're kind even when the world gives you no reason to be. I know you work double shifts to help pay for your neighbor's daughter's medical treatments. Yes, I had you investigated, he added when I stared at him in shock. I know you volunteer at the free clinic on Saturdays. I know you're terrified of me, but you're still here. Still fighting. Still trying to protect something. His eyes dropped to where my hand rested on my stomach. What are you protecting, Ilara? Time stopped. My breath caught. His gaze was too knowing, too sharp. Nothing, I said. I'm not... You keep touching your stomach. His voice was gentle but relentless. You refused wine. You're exhausted despite getting 8 hours of sleep. I checked the bedroom monitors. You're nauseous. You're monitoring me? Anger gave me strength. You're watching me sleep. For your protection. But guilt flickered across his face. The cameras don't record. They just alert me if there's movement. If someone enters who shouldn't be there. That's still a violation, I know. He didn't apologize. But I'd rather violate your privacy than let someone hurt you. I stood, needing distance. Needing to escape this conversation before it went somewhere I couldn't return from. I want to go home tomorrow, I said. Back to my apartment. Back to my life. No. You can't keep me prisoner. I'm not. He stood too, towering over me in the darkness. You're free to leave. But I'll follow. My men will follow. Because I'm not letting you out of my protection, Ilara. Not when the Calabrese are watching. Not when what? I challenged. Not when I'm convenient for you? Not when I'm an interesting distraction? Not when I'm falling in love with you? The words exploded from him, raw and angry and absolutely sincere. I stared at him, speechless. I didn't want this, he continued, his voice dropping. I fought it. I tried to forget you, but every night for 3 months I dreamed about you. Every day I thought about tracking you down. And when I finally did, when I saw you again, he moved closer. I realized I was completely fucked. Because you'd gotten under my skin in a way no one ever has, and I'm not letting you go. That's not love, I breathed. That's possession. Maybe for me they're the same thing. His hand cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone. Maybe I'm too broken to love the way normal people do. But this, what I feel for you, it's real. And it's not going away. I should have pushed him away, should have maintained distance. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my body betraying my mind. I can't do this, I whispered. I can't be what you need me to be. You already are. He leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. You're everything I never knew I wanted. You don't know what you're saying, don't I? His lips brushed mine, barely a kiss, just a promise of one. Tell me you feel nothing. Tell me these 3 months meant nothing to you. Tell me you didn't think about me at all. I couldn't. Because I had thought about him. Every day. Every night. Every time I looked at the ultrasound and saw the evidence of what we'd created together. Dante. His name was a plea. Stay. He murmured against my lips. Just stay. Let me protect you. Let me... A phone rang. Harsh, jarring, shattering the moment. Dante pulled away, his expression shifting instantly to something cold and deadly. He pulled the phone from his pocket, his jaw tightening as he read the screen. What? He answered, his voice sharp. I watched his face change, saw fury and something that looked like fear flash across his features. When? A pause. How many? Another pause, longer this time. Get everyone to the safe house now, and double the security here. I want... He stopped, his eyes finding mine. Yes, she's here. She's safe. He ended the call, but his hand was shaking slightly as he lowered the phone. What happened? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. The Calabrese just hit 3 of my businesses. His voice was eerily calm. Killed 5 of my men. Left a message. What kind of message? His eyes met mine, and I saw something that terrified me. Genuine fear. They know about you. They used your name. He moved toward the door. Get dressed. We're leaving. Now. What? Where? Somewhere they can't find you. He was already in motion, deadly and efficient. Marco is bringing the car around. Pack only what you need. We leave in 5 minutes. Dante, He stopped at the door, looking back at me with an expression that made my heart break. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I thought I could keep you safe here. I was wrong. They're coming for you, Alara, and I won't let them have you, even if it means burning everything I've built to the ground. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the terrifying realization that my secret wasn't the only thing putting us in danger anymore. The war had begun, and I was the prize they were fighting over. The safe house was a cabin 2 hours outside the city, buried so deep in the woods that even the moonlight seemed hesitant to reach it. We'd driven in silence, Dante at the wheel of an unmarked sedan, while Marco and 3 other guards followed in a separate vehicle. Every few minutes, Dante's eyes would flick to the rearview mirror, his jaw tight, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I'd seen him kill a man once, not in person, but I'd overheard the nurses talking about a shooting outside the hospital 3 weeks after our night together. They'd described the way he'd executed someone with cold precision, no hesitation, no remorse. But I'd never seen him afraid until now. We'll be safe here, he said, as we pulled up to the cabin, his first words in over an hour. Only 5 people know this location exists. All of them would die before giving it up. Comforting, I muttered, climbing out of the car with legs that felt like jelly. The cabin was larger than I expected. 2 stories, modern despite its rustic exterior, with security cameras disguised as outdoor lighting. Marco and his men immediately began a perimeter check, while Dante guided me inside with a hand on the small of my back. The interior was sparse but functional. Leather furniture, a stone fireplace, a kitchen stocked with non-perishables. It looked like a place designed for hiding, not living. There are 2 bedrooms upstairs, Dante said, locking the door behind us with 3 separate deadbolts. You take the master. I'll sleep in the guest room. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He turned to face me, and the exhaustion in his expression made him look almost vulnerable. I need to know you're comfortable, safe, as far from me as possible in case... In case what? In case they find us. He moved to the window, checking the sight lines with practiced efficiency. In case I can't protect you, in case I have to make choices I don't want to make. Fear crystallized in my chest. What kind of choices? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I sank onto the leather couch, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. The baby was still too small to feel. Still just a secret I carried alone, but sitting here, in a safe house in the middle of nowhere, running from men who wanted to use me as leverage against Dante. I couldn't keep hiding the truth, not anymore. Dante, I said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. He turned from the window, his dark eyes finding mine with that unsettling intensity. I'm listening. My mouth went dry. My heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at me to stay quiet, to protect the secret, to protect myself. But he deserved to know. And more than that, our baby deserved a father who knew they existed. That night, I began, my voice shaking. 3 months ago, we weren't careful. Understanding flickered across his face, followed by something I couldn't read. You're pregnant. It wasn't a question. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. I found out 6 weeks ago. I was going to, what? Run? Disappear? Raise his child alone and hope he never found out? I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know if I should tell you. Silence stretched between us, heavy as a guillotine blade waiting to fall. Dante didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me with an expression that shifted through emotions too quickly to track. Shock, disbelief, anger, something that might have been joy before it disappeared behind his mask. Say something, I whispered. Please, how long were you going to wait? His voice was eerily calm. How long were you going to hide my child from me? I wasn't hiding. Weren't you? He moved closer, controlled fury in every line of his body. You ran from me. You avoided me. You plan to disappear. And all this time, you've been carrying my baby and I had no idea. I was scared. The words burst out of me. I was terrified. Men like you don't do families, Dante. They don't do commitment or love or men like me. His laugh was bitter. You mean monsters, criminals, killers. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He turned away, his hands clenching into fists. You think I don't know what I am? You think I haven't spent every day since my father's death trying not to become him? And now you're telling me I'm going to be a father, that I'm going to bring a child into this world, into this life. He stopped, his shoulders heaving. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have told you sooner. I should have... Do you want to keep it? The question was raw, vulnerable. The baby. Do you want it? Yes. No hesitation. More than anything. He turned back to me, and the expression on his face made my breath catch. It wasn't anger. It was something far more dangerous. Hope mixed with terror. I'm going to be a father, he said quietly, as if testing the words. I'm going to have a child. We're going to have a child, I corrected. Something broke in his expression, the careful control he'd maintained shattering like glass. In 3 strides, he crossed the room and dropped to his knees in front of me, his hands framing my face with devastating gentleness. I'm sorry, he breathed. I'm so fucking sorry. For scaring you. For making you feel like you had to run. For being the kind of man who made you afraid to tell me about our baby. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I didn't know how you'd react. I didn't know if you'd... Want it? His thumbs wiped away my tears. Ilara, I've spent 3 months obsessed with you. 3 months trying to find you, to understand why you left, to figure out if what I felt was real or just fixation. And now you're telling me we created a life together? His hand moved to my stomach, hovering there as if afraid to touch. May I? I nodded, unable to speak. His palm settled over my abdomen. Still flat, still hiding the secret that was no longer secret. His hand was warm, large enough to span my entire stomach, and I felt the slight tremor in his fingers. There's a baby in there, he whispered, wonder and terror mixing in his voice. Our baby. Yes. And you were going to raise it alone, hide from me. Make sure I never knew. I thought it was safer, I admitted. I thought bringing a child into your world would be dangerous. He looked up at me. You're right. My world is violence and blood and betrayal. It's no place for a child, no place for you. My heart sank. So, what are you saying? I'm saying everything changes. His voice hardened with determination. I'm saying I get out. I find a way to protect you both without this life. You can't just leave the Mafia, Dante. That's not how it works. I can if I'm dead. The words were matter of fact, horrifying. If Dante Morelli dies, his obligations die with him. No. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. You are not faking your death. You are not abandoning everything because of this. I won't let you. You won't let me. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're carrying my baby and you think you can tell me what to do? Yes. I met his gaze without flinching. Because that baby needs a father who's alive, not a ghost running from his past. And because... I took a shaking breath. Because I think I'm falling for you too. And I need you alive. The confession hung between us, raw and honest and terrifying. Dante's eyes darkened with something primal. You're falling for me. Unfortunately, he repeated, and then he was kissing me, deep and desperate and claiming, his hands tangled in my hair, his body pressing against mine with barely restrained need. I kissed him back, 3 months of longing and fear and denial exploding into this moment. His taste was familiar, intoxicating, dangerous. Everything I'd been running from, and everything I wanted. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I will protect you both, he swore. With everything I have, everything I am. No one will touch you. No one will hurt our baby. I promise you that, Ilara. How? I whispered. How can you promise that when there are people hunting us right now? His expression went cold, deadly. Because I'm going to end this war, tonight. What? No, you can't. The Calabrese made a mistake. He stood, pulling out his phone. They threatened what's mine. They put our baby in danger. And for that, they're going to pay. Dante, please. Stay here. Lock the doors. Marco and his men will protect you. He was already moving toward the door. Transformation complete. From the vulnerable man who'd touched my stomach with wonder, to the killer who'd built an empire on blood. Don't do this, I followed him. Don't go out there and start a war because of me. He turned at the door, his eyes blazing. The war started the moment they said your name. The moment they thought they could use you against me. This ends tonight, Ilara, one way or another. And if you die, my voice broke. If you go out there and don't come back, what happens to us then? Something softened in his expression. He crossed back to me, cupping my face one more time. I'm not going to die, he said gently. I have too much to live for now. Then he kissed me. Soft, sweet goodbye, and walked out the door. I stood there, frozen, listening to the sound of his car starting, driving away, disappearing into the night. Marco appeared in the doorway. He'll be fine, Miss Chen. Mr. Morelli is resourceful. He's going to get himself killed. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling cold despite the cabin's warmth. And it's my fault. No, ma'am. It's the Calabrese family's fault. They chose this. Marco's expression was grim, and they're going to regret it. The hours crawled by like years. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything but pace the cabin and imagine every horrible scenario. Dante bleeding out in an alley. Dante captured. Dante dead because he'd been distracted thinking about me, about the baby. Marco tried to reassure me, but his constant checking of his phone betrayed his own anxiety. At 4 a.m., headlights cut through the darkness. I was at the window immediately, my heart in my throat. Is that... Stay back, Marco ordered, his gun already drawn. But I recognized the car, recognized the way it parked, the way the door opened. Dante emerged and I nearly collapsed with relief. He was covered in blood, his shirt torn, his face bruised, his knuckles split. But he was alive. He was walking. He was coming toward the cabin with that same predatory grace. I threw open the door before Marco could stop me, running out into the cold. You're alive, I breathed, my hands hovering over him, afraid to touch, afraid I'd hurt him. You're alive. I told you I would be. His voice was hoarse, exhausted. It's over, Ilara. The Calabrese. They won't be a problem anymore. How much of this blood is yours? Not much. He swayed slightly, and I realized he was barely staying upright. The rest belongs to people who threatened my family. My family. The words hit me like a physical blow. Come inside, I said, taking his arm. Let me help you. He didn't argue, which told me how badly he was hurt. Together, with Marco's help, we got him inside and onto the couch. I'd treated hundreds of patients in my career. I'd seen worse injuries than split knuckles and bruised ribs, but seeing Dante hurt, seeing the evidence of violence on his skin, made my hands shake as I cleaned his wounds with supplies from the cabin's first aid kit. You should see the other guys, he joked weakly. Not funny. I dabbed antiseptic on his knuckles, making him hiss. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, because I had something to come back to. His hand covered mine, stilling my movements. Someone to come back to. Two someones, actually. His other hand moved to my stomach. That same gentle touch that had undone me earlier. I met with the Calabrese leadership, he said quietly. Explained the situation. Made them understand that you're off limits. That our child is off limits. That anyone who even looks at you wrong will answer to me personally. How did you make them understand? His expression went dark. I showed them what happens to people who threaten what's mine. I should have been horrified. Should have pulled away from this man who solved problems with violence. Instead, I found myself leaning into him, my forehead resting against his shoulder. I was so scared, I whispered. I thought I'd lost you. I thought our baby would never know their father. Never. His arms came around me, careful of his injuries. I'm not going anywhere, Ilara. You're stuck with me now. For better or worse? Worse, probably, I said against his chest. Definitely worse. I could hear the smile in his voice. But I'll spend every day trying to be better. For you. For our baby. I'll be the man you deserve instead of the monster I was raised to be. I pulled back to look at him. You're not a monster, Dante. Monsters don't keep their promises. Monsters don't protect. Monsters don't... I touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. Monsters don't look at me the way you do. And how do I look at you? Like I'm worth saving. His eyes softened. You are. You're worth everything. He kissed me then, gentle despite the split in his lip, tender despite the violence still staining his hands. And I kissed him back, accepting every part of him, even the dark parts, even the dangerous parts, because he was the father of my child. Because he'd walked into hell tonight to keep us safe. Because somewhere in the past 3 months, I'd stopped running and started falling. And there was no going back now. 3 weeks passed in the cabin, and against all odds, they were the most peaceful weeks of my life. Dante stayed. Not just physically, though he was always there, always watching, always protective, but emotionally. He asked questions about the baby, researched pregnancy nutrition obsessively, and had Marco bring prenatal vitamins and pregnancy books that he read cover to cover like they were battle strategies. He was trying, desperately, awkwardly, beautifully trying to be something other than what he'd been raised to be. It says here you need more protein, he announced one morning, looking up from a book titled What to Expect When You're Expecting, with the same intensity he probably used to read intelligence reports. And folic acid. Are you getting enough folic acid? I looked up from my own book, a novel I'd been trying to read for days, and couldn't help but smile. Yes, Dante. The vitamins you've been forcing on me 3 times a day have plenty of folic acid. Good. He made a note in the margins. He'd been keeping a journal, tracking everything about the pregnancy with meticulous detail. And you're drinking enough water? The book says dehydration can cause complications. I'm drinking so much water I practically live in the bathroom. He frowned. Is that normal? Should I call a doctor? It's completely normal. I set down my book and moved to sit beside him on the couch. You need to relax. The baby is fine. I'm fine. You're not fine. You threw up this morning. His hand immediately went to my stomach, now slightly rounded with the evidence of our child. At 16 weeks, I was finally showing a small bump that Dante treated like it was made of spun glass. Morning sickness can be a sign of a completely healthy pregnancy, I interrupted gently. Which is what we have. He exhaled slowly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. I need to make sure you're both okay. I need to control something in a situation where you have very little control, I suggested. His lips quirked. Am I that transparent? Completely. I took the book from his hands and set it aside. But it's sweet, in a slightly obsessive, overprotective way. I prefer to think of it as thorough. But his arms came around me, pulling me against his chest with the careful gentleness he'd adopted since learning about the baby. I'm sorry. I know I'm being excessive. You're being a concerned father. I tilted my head back to look at him. It's actually one of your more attractive qualities. One of? His eyebrow raised, implying there are others, maybe 1 or 2. I traced the scar on his jaw, a reminder of the night he'd gone to war for us. When you're not being a terrifying crime lord, you're almost normal. Almost. He kissed the top of my head. I'll take it. The truth was, these 3 weeks had shown me sides of Dante I never knew existed. He cooked, surprisingly well, because he didn't trust anyone else to prepare my food. He read to me at night, his deep voice turning thriller novels into bedtime stories. He held me when nightmares woke me up, whispering promises in Italian that I didn't understand but felt in my bones. He was building something with me, a future that looked nothing like the violent past that had defined him. But I knew it couldn't last forever. We need to talk about what happens next, I said quietly. We can't hide here forever. His arms tightened around me. Why not? Because I have a job, a life, because you have responsibilities. That can wait. His voice was firm. Nothing is more important than keeping you safe. The Calabresi are gone, Dante. You made sure of that. I turned in his arms to face him fully. We can't live in fear forever. Our baby deserves better than that. Something painful crossed his expression. Our baby deserves a father who isn't constantly looking over his shoulder, who doesn't have enemies waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then give them that father. I cupped his face. Not by running or hiding or pretending to be dead, but by being better, by choosing us over the life you've always known. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. I held his gaze. But I believe you can do it. I believe you want to do it. He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching mine. Then, what if I can't? What if the man I am is all I know how to be? Then I'll teach you. The words came out with more confidence than I felt. We'll figure it out together. But Dante, I need you to try. I need you to choose this. Choose us. Every single day. I already have. His hand covered mine on his face. The moment you told me about the baby, everything changed. You changed everything, Alara. I took a shaking breath. Prove it. Come back to the city with me. Let me return to work. Let us build a real life together, not just hide in a cabin pretending the world doesn't exist. Fear flickered across his features. What if something happens? What if I can't protect you out there? Then we'll face it together. I moved his hand to my stomach, where our baby was growing stronger every day. All three of us. 2 days later, we returned to the city. Dante had made arrangements, extensive, paranoid, thorough arrangements. My apartment was now equipped with security that probably violated several laws. His men maintained a discreet perimeter at all times. He'd personally vetted every single person who worked at the hospital, ensuring no Calabresi sympathizers remained. It was excessive. It was controlling. It was also proof that he was trying to balance protection with the freedom I needed. I'll be fine, I told him for the 3rd time as he walked me to my car on my first day back at work. It's a 12-hour shift. I've done thousands of them, not while pregnant with my child. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the parking garage like threats lurked behind every pillar. And not while people still remember you were connected to me. Were? I raised an eyebrow. Past tense? He had the grace to look sheepish. Are connected to me? Will always be connected to me, assuming you want to be. It wasn't quite a proposal, but it was close enough to make my heart skip. We'll see, I said, teasing. You're still on probation. Probation. He pulled me close, his hand immediately finding my stomach. His new habit, his constant reassurance that we were both real and safe. I'm a Mafia boss on probation with a nurse who's carrying my baby. My life has become very strange. Former Mafia boss, I corrected. You promised you'd step back. I am stepping back. His expression turned serious. I've been transitioning leadership to my cousin, liquidating assets, making arrangements. It's not instant, Alara. I can't just walk away without causing a power vacuum that would put us all in danger. But I'm trying. I could see the truth in his eyes, the exhaustion, the weight of trying to dismantle an empire while keeping everyone safe. I know, I said softly, and I appreciate it. Just don't lose yourself in the process. Don't become someone you're not just because you think that's what I want. Who do you want me to be? Exactly who you are right now. I kissed him, soft and sweet. The man who reads pregnancy books like textbooks, who holds me when I'm scared, who's trying so damn hard to be good even though the world taught him to be anything but. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. What if I fail? What if I can't be what you need? Then we'll figure it out. I touched his face, tracing the lines of stress that had appeared over the past weeks. Together. That's what partners do. Partners. He tested the word, and I saw him fighting a smile. I liked the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. I patted my stomach. For at least the next 18 years. Probably longer. Probably forever, he corrected, and kissed me like he meant it. The shift was long but uneventful. Patients came and went, emergencies were handled, and life continued with the steady rhythm I'd always found comforting. My co-workers noticed the bump, now impossible to hide, and congratulated me with genuine warmth. No one asked about the father, no one mentioned Dante, but I caught Maria, the older nurse, watching me with knowing eyes. "You're glowing," she said during our break, her voice gentle. "Pregnancy suits you. Thanks." I sipped water, trying not to think about how Dante had texted me 4 times already asking if I was okay. The father. Maria's eyes were sharp. "He's good to you?" I thought about the question, about Dante's past and his present, about the violence he'd committed and the gentleness he showed me, about the monster he'd been and the man he was trying to become. "Yes," I said honestly. "He's good to me. He's trying to be better. For us." Maria nodded slowly. "Then he's worth keeping." She squeezed my hand. "Lord knows good men are hard to find. Men willing to change? Those are miracles." Dante was waiting in the parking garage when my shift ended, leaning against his car with the casual confidence of someone who owned the world. But his eyes lit up when he saw me. And that smile, the one reserved just for me, transformed his entire face. "How was it?" he asked, pulling me into his arms immediately. "Exhausting. My feet are killing me." I leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent, but good. Normal. I missed normal. "I researched foot massages for pregnant women," he announced seriously. "I can do that when we get home, and I made dinner. Well, Teresa made dinner, but I supervised. Does that count?" I laughed, the sound surprising me. "It counts." "Good." He guided me to the car, his hand on my back, protective but not controlling, because I'm trying this whole domestic thing and I'm not sure I'm doing it right. "You're doing fine." I slid into the passenger seat, watching as he rounded the car with that predatory grace that still made my pulse skip. Better than fine, actually. The drive to his penthouse, our penthouse now, since he'd insisted I move in where security was tighter, was comfortable. He told me about his day, carefully editing out the dangerous parts but giving me enough to understand he was keeping his promise. Stepping back, transferring power. Building a life that didn't revolve around violence. "My cousin will take over officially next month," he said as we rode the private elevator up. "After that, I'll just be a silent investor. No operations, no decisions, just money in accounts that I'll never touch." "And you're okay with that?" I studied his profile. "Giving up all that power?" "I'm terrified," he admitted. "Power is all I've ever known. Control is how I survived, but..." His hand found mine, lacing our fingers together. "You were right. Our baby deserves better, deserves a father who comes home every night, who doesn't have blood on his hands. You might get bored," I warned. "Domestic life isn't exactly thrilling." He looked at me then, his eyes dark and intense. "Ilara, I've spent 15 years running an empire built on fear. I've killed, manipulated, destroyed, and in 3 months with you, I've felt more alive than in all those years combined. Bored is the last thing I'll be." The elevator doors opened to the penthouse, and I was hit with the smell of home cooking, rich and Italian and perfect. "You really did supervise dinner," I said, impressed. "I told you." He helped me out of my coat with careful hands. "I'm trying this domestic thing, which means cooking, cleaning, and foot massages. Also, I bought baby books, a lot of baby books. Teresa thinks I'm insane, but I want to be prepared." I turned to face him fully, this man who'd turned my world upside down. "I love you," I said, the words coming easily now. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated, but I do. I love you, Dante Morelli." He froze, his expression shifting through a dozen emotions before landing on something that looked like wonder. "Say it again," he whispered. "I love you. Again. I love you." I laughed through sudden tears. "Even though you're overprotective and controlling and slightly insane about pregnancy nutrition, I love you too." He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. "I've never said that to anyone, never felt it. But with you, God, Ilara, with you I feel everything, and it terrifies me and thrills me, and I never want it to stop." He kissed me then, deep and claiming and gentle all at once, and I kissed him back, tasting our future in his lips. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he dropped to his knees, right there in the foyer, This man who'd built an empire on fear knelt before me and placed both hands on my stomach. "I promise," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "that I will protect you both with everything I am. I promise I'll be better than my father. Better than the man I was. I promise I'll choose you, both of you. Every single day for the rest of my life." Tears streamed down my face. "Dante, marry me." He looked up, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know it's fast. I know I don't deserve you, but marry me anyway. Let me be your husband. Let me be our baby's father. Let me prove that monsters can change." "Yes." No hesitation. No doubt. "Yes, I'll marry you." The smile that broke across his face was pure joy, untainted by darkness, by violence, by anything except love. He stood, lifting me into his arms, spinning me around until I laughed and begged him to stop. "We're getting married," he said, setting me down gently. "We're having a baby. We're building a life together. A normal life," I added. "No mafia, no violence, just us." "Just us," he agreed, "and maybe some security guards, for safety." "Dante, discreet security guards," he amended, "who stay outside, far outside, but they're non-negotiable." I sighed, but I was smiling. "Fine. Discreet security guards. Good." He kissed my forehead, my nose, my lips, "Because I'm never letting anything happen to you. Either of you. Not now. Not 6 ever." Months later. The baby arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks early and absolutely perfect. Dante held our daughter with the same hands that had once dealt death, and I watched him transform completely. His dark eyes filled with tears as he traced her tiny features, counted her fingers, whispered promises in Italian that made the nurses sigh. "She looks like you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Beautiful. Perfect. Everything good in this world." "Or she has your eyes," I pointed out, "and your stubborn chin." "God help us all." But he was smiling, that genuine smile I'd worked so hard to earn. "What are we naming her?" I asked, exhausted but deliriously happy. "Sophia." He didn't hesitate. "It means wisdom. I want her to be wiser than I was. Better than I was." "Sophia Morelli." I tested the name. "I like it." "Sophia Morelli Chen," he corrected, looking at me. "She deserves to carry your strength too." Marco appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable in the hospital setting but genuinely happy. "Congratulations, boss. She's beautiful." "Former boss," Dante corrected, not looking away from our daughter. "I'm just a dad now." And he was. Dante had kept his promise. He'd walked away from the empire, transferred everything to his cousin, and built a life that revolved around diaper changes and midnight feedings instead of territory wars and blood debts. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes I caught him staring out windows with that calculating look, and I knew he missed the power. Sometimes he got calls from his cousin about problems that needed solving, and I saw him fight the urge to get involved. But he always chose us, every single time. "I can't believe she's real," he whispered, rocking Sophia gently. "That we made this. That something this pure came from someone like me." "You're not that person anymore," I reminded him. "You're Sophia's father, my husband. A man who chose love over power. Best decision I ever made." He leaned down to kiss me, careful not to disturb the baby in his arms. "Even if it did start with you dropping an ultrasound at my feet and making me realize my entire life was about to change." I laughed, remembering that night. The panic, the fear, the certainty that telling him would destroy everything. Instead, it had saved us both. "I love you," I said. "Even when you're obsessively reading parenting books at 3 a.m., I love you too." He settled into the chair beside my bed, our daughter cradled against his chest. "Both of you. My entire world." And watching him, this man who'd been raised to be a monster but chose to be a father instead, I knew that sometimes the darkest beginnings led to the brightest futures. Sometimes, love really could change everything, even monsters. Especially monsters. The afternoon sun streamed through the hospital window, painting Dante and Sophia in golden light. Outside, I could hear the city continuing. Loud, chaotic, dangerous. But inside this room, we'd built something sacred, a family, a future. A love that had survived secrets, violence, and fear to become something unbreakable. And as I watched Dante whisper promises to our daughter, promises to protect her, to love her, to be the father she deserved, I knew that our story wasn't about the darkness we'd escaped. It was about the light we'd found together. And that light would guide us through whatever came next. Together. Always together.